Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the 7 Resorts in 7 Days series that we have been doing this week. I'm your host, Pete Werner, and today I am joined by Mr. Steve Porter.
Hello.
And we are going to talk about Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort. Now, I will be honest and say that this is the first time in all the 7 and 7s we've done, this is the first time we've done Saratoga. And the reason for that, quite honestly, is I always forget about it. And I don't know why that is. It doesn't have, and I don't listen to the whole episode before you send me any hate mail, because I know there's a lot of people who love Saratoga out there. It does not have the same draw for me that some of the other resorts have. And I'm just talking about the home away from home resorts here. Mm-hmm. When you talk about Old Key West, Boardwalk, Beach Club, Wilderness Lodge, Grand Floridian, Polynesian, I think those all have more...
They have more of a Disney heart to them. And I'm not to say that there isn't something there for Saratoga, but I see why it wasn't the first thing that came to your mind, because it doesn't stick out.
But also this is this is the third iteration now of this property. It started out, was it Disney Village? Was that the resort?
Yes.
The Disney Village Resort?
And then it was the Disney Institute.
And then it was the Disney Institute, and now it's Saratoga Springs.
But
So-
when it was the Disney Village, it wasn't the same structure that it is now. The Disney Institute and what it is now is basically the same thing. The Disney Village were like houses that you had. My family actually stayed there on our first trip ever.
And this is also where the the famous tree houses are located. You'll hear people talk about the tree houses. That's part of Disney Vacation Club. Those are the versions of the grand villas that some of the other resorts have. But so, I wasn't overly excited about doing Saratoga, but because we hadn't done it and we've been asked so many times to include it, I said, okay, let's go ahead and check it out. And it had been so long since I'd been over there, I was having trouble finding it. And, like, where's the entrance? I think the entrance is over here. Not a problem I have too often at Disney resorts, but let's talk about the check-in experience first. You checked in ahead of me.
Yep, I checked in.
Steve is actually the one who spent the night in the resort.
Yeah, I checked in. Got my Magic Band. She said the room wasn't ready, and I said okay, because I was there much before 4 o'clock. I got there at 10:30 or 11.
Yeah, you were there
like
early.
That. Just wanted to explore the grounds and stuff like that. And so the room wasn't ready, and so that was fine. But then the check-in process then kind of took a while, because then you arrived and we did some more things, and then we went back and the room still wasn't ready, and we went back and the room still wasn't ready. And it was after 4. It was just shortly after 4, but it was probably 4:20 or 4:30 by the time the room was ready.
Right. Well, they had said that maintenance was working on the room, and that until maintenance released the room, they couldn't put us in. But after we went back to check, what's going on, because we'd been walking around doing stuff, and there was a pretty long line in the lobby, and I got to tell you, it was not organized at all.
Yeah.
There were multiple lines for different things, and the lines were crossing, and there was nobody there expediting this. So it was all kind of very confusing. And then someone comes along and says, okay, you need to stand here. So we're standing there, and, other people are moving in front of us. And I'm like, oh, that ain't going to happen. So I was getting annoyed.
There's no official queue for the check-in. It's just kind of like a big room.
It's a rotunda. It's like a round room with something in the middle of it, and so people are snaking around this thing in the middle, and it was bizarre. It was totally weird.
Yeah, they need to have something set up so that it's a little bit more. If they're not going to have a cast member that's making it an easier process by saying here's the front of the line, stand behind me if you're going to check in. If they don't want to pay for that person, then they need to pay to have a queue.
No, they need to pay for that person. But honestly, so that could definitely use some work. Their check-in process could definitely use some work.
That being said, once we got to the desk,
they were wonderful.
They were great.
Cast members were great, absolutely great. We did have lunch. We wanted to have lunch over at the Turf Club. Turf Club is, because this is part of the one of the I think it's the Lake Buena Vista Golf Course is over there. The pro shop for the Lake Buena Vista Golf Course is there, and there's a restaurant upstairs from the pro shop called the Turf Club. And it just so happened that a few days before, I'd had dinner there with somebody who donated to Give Kids the World, something we were doing there to help raise money. If you donated at least $1,500, you'd have dinner with some members of the team. So Kathy, Teresa, and I had dinner there. And the last time I'd eaten at the Turf Club, it wasn't very good. That was a few years ago. This meal that we had that night was phenomenal. It was excellent. I'm like, wow, this has come a long way. So I was anxious to go back and eat there again. I figured, let's go for lunch, only to find out it was not open for lunch. It's only open for dinner. So we head over to the
Artisan Palette
Artist. I think it's Artist Palette.
Artist Palette, yeah.
And that's their, I guess, their food court, for lack of a better term. It's their counter service. What did you think?
So I got a buffalo chicken sandwich. I was not overly impressed. I remember it being super, super spicy. And I've had food there in the past a long time ago that I think I had a better experience with. So I don't know if this was just what I chose or if things have gotten worse. But I didn't finish my sandwich, and I love buffalo chicken. So
Well, this was another location where they are line challenged because, again, you have the food area, like the food line where you can go get what you want to eat, where you order what you want to eat. Then you have the grocery stuff, and you also have the retail location.
And you have the drinks.
And the drinks are all in the same, like this like elongated space, and there's like one area to check out. So you have these lines crisscrossing each other. You have lines of people waiting to like buy merchandise, lines of people waiting to buy food, lines of people waiting to get food. And it was just, for somebody who does, I mean, if you're a DVC person and you own at Saratoga Springs, well, I forgot to mention that this is a Disney Vacation Club property. For those who don't know, you can rent these rooms as regular hotel rooms. But if you're a DVC member, you can buy into Saratoga. So if you're a regular there, I'm sure this all makes sense to you. But for somebody coming in for the first time, and really it's been so long since I've been there, it was like being there for the first time. I was totally confused as to what to do, and no one was around to give direction.
And you're crisscrossing this entire place. So
Yeah.
you're like, you go to get your order, then you go back to the other side to pay for it, and then they give you your cup, so then you got to go to the other side to get your drink. It's like they could have designed this in a way so it was one fluid motion.
Yeah, and no, they did not do that. And at this particular moment, I don't, I know it's in the package we put together. I don't remember what I had or what I thought of it.
It was a wrap or something. I don't remember, but
yeah, and I don't remember it, and I don't remember what I thought of it. So with every one of these, there's a video, a package video going up that you can watch, and you can find out there what I thought of it, because I really don't remember, which probably
Turkey Club, I think.
Was it Turkey Club?
Yeah.
Did I like it?
No.
Okay.
You didn't finish it.
I didn't finish it. So
You said
there.
it was pedestrian.
Did I say pedestrian? Did I use pedestrian?
I think you did.
Okay. Because that's my favorite word doing the dining reviews now is pedestrian. So after that, we decided to walk around. My nephew Carl was with us. My brother was in town that week for my brother and my nephew were in town that week because of my Super Bowl party. And my brother is amazed that I do a Super Bowl party. So, like the first year I did it, he's like, "You really did a Super Bowl party?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, I'm coming next year." So last year he came, this year he came, which I'm thrilled about. I'd love to see my brother. So my brother decided to go back to the hotel after lunch and go to take a nap. And my nephew Carl hung around with us. And I think the first thing we did was we walked over to the arcade. Mm-hmm. And checked out the arcade, which was disappointing.
It's very, very, very small.
And it's a very, very small arcade. And again, like if you want big arcades, you got to go to the value resorts.
Yeah. I mean, the size of the arcade is about the size of like 1.5 of the actual rooms. It's not very big at all.
It's not big.
There's probably 6 or 7 machines across by 5, if you can imagine.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of space. And so it's like, I don't understand the logic behind that, but it's been a consistent theme in this week that, the less expensive the resort, the bigger the arcade gets. And we didn't do the pool. So
I've swam in that pool before. It has 0 entry, has a slide. It is actually a nice pool.
It is a nice pool.
There's a pool bar there. There's a hot tub. So I actually do enjoy this pool. And it's a little less crowded than some of the other deluxe pools can get because they have, I think, the popularity of something like, the Polynesian, which now has the magic bands to get in. But the popularity of those pools sometimes have people from other resorts trying to sneak in, where this one's doesn't wow you so much that you're going to have that problem. But it is a nice pool, and you aren't going to have, it's not flooded with people from other resorts. So you have tons of space, and I think it's a great pool.
Well, generally speaking, walking around the grounds, I started to develop a real affinity for this resort. Now, this is one of the places where you and I kind of diverged. It felt like upstate New York to me, But Steve, being from upstate New York, said not so much.
Yeah, so the feel of actual Saratoga Springs doesn't really feel like this at all. There's a couple things, like they did a good job. There's one pool that looks like the racetrack, and there's a couple touches that you say, okay, I see what you're doing there. But for the most part, it just didn't give me that feeling of, wow, I feel like I'm in Saratoga again, which some resorts can give me that feeling.
Well, but but you really don't feel like it even had that New York State kind of feel to it?
I don't know. Maybe it's I have too much of a familiarization with upstate New York that it would have had to have been like exact. Maybe that's what it was. There was like foliage somehow that day though, so that did help. But in the grounds, I do totally agree that the grounds are beautiful. I think there's giant fountains at a lot of these ponds, and the grounds are very well kept. So it wasn't that it wasn't beautiful. It's just that it didn't remind me of upstate New York.
Okay. Well, I mean, for me, it definitely kind of evoked that feel for me. Mm-hmm. Thought the color palette used on the buildings, just the landscaping, the trees, just it was really, really very very relaxing. It definitely not a hustle and bustle kind of place. You definitely feel removed from all the goings on around Walt Disney World. One of the big pros to this resort, though, is its proximity to Disney Springs. Mm-hmm. We did the walk from the main building over to Disney Springs. I think it only took us about 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10, 12 minutes or something like that.
And I was, it was a nice walk. It was an easy walk. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Just kind of being able to walk over here. And
well, it's definitely a huge amenity for some families that are, especially if you're on a shorter Disney trip, that sometimes people don't allocate that Disney Springs time because they're like, I don't want to take the bus, and they take the bus
It can
back.
be a little bit of a pain getting over to Disney Springs.
Especially if you're on that short trip and you just don't want to spend that time. But to head over to Disney Springs if you're at Saratoga, it's just almost like an extra amenity on your hotel, because it's really not that big of an inconvenience unless you don't have 10 minutes to walk there.
Considering the size, the square footage of this resort, just in terms of the square miles of this resort, it is so expansive that it's not hard to think of Disney Springs as just like the retail division of Saratoga Springs.
I'm trying to find the resort because it is...
This is a massive property, okay? Yeah. You can do a lot of walking here because it's very, very spread out.
So I'm looking at the map now. If you're in the carousel section or over by, if you are in the treehouse section, they are very far away from the lobby and from trying to get to, they're going to have your bus transportation right outside throughout the resort. So getting to the theme parks is not too bad. But if you want to get to...
And there's always an internal bus that runs around the resort where you can get to different places. But from those locations, you're not going to do, maybe you are going to do the walk. I would walk it, but I think most people are going to want to either drive or take a bus.
Mm-hmm. So just if you are trying to find out, or if you're asked, hey, where would you like your room, here, or here, look at the map and really pay attention, because that can be a dramatic difference.
And one of the other pluses to Saratoga Springs is they have a spa there. Now, back in the day, this was my favorite spa in Orlando. They had, but it was run at that point. It was run by Disney. Then they turned it over to, I can't think of her name. Oh, I'm drawing a complete blank. They turned it over to this woman who ran a lot of salons and spas, and she ran it into the ground. I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible under this company. And the Grand Floridian spa, this spa, were both turned over to that company, and they were run into the ground. And then Disney ended up taking them back over. So I didn't get a chance. I tried to get a spa appointment as a walk-in, but they had nothing available. But just kind of looking at the facility, it's that same facility. It's a huge facility for a spa. And so I'm very anxious to get over there and see how it is. But it used to be, back in the day, it used to be the best spa, certainly the best on property, but arguably the best in Orlando. So going to have to go check that out and see what I think of it. But it is a big plus having, you know, a spa right there in your resort, and it's a full spa, full service spa, so you can get everything done there, with the exception of Botox injections. You need to get on a ship and go into international waters, otherwise it's illegal. But Steve actually stayed in the room, and what were your thoughts?
So overall, I think that these rooms are very comfortable and that they have a homey feel to them. They're a little bit darker in there, which isn't for everyone, but I kind of did like that. It made it feel more comfortable, like you're in a, cozy little cabin almost.
And you were in a one bedroom.
One bedroom, yep. And I mean, there's a huge bathtub, jacuzzi bathtub, that kind of overlooks into the master's bedroom. And there's also a shower in there, a stand-up shower, and there's a washer dryer. So there's a couple cool amenities in this room. The only problem that I had with it was that it's getting to a point where maybe in a year or two, maybe 3, it's gonna need to have some sort of a room refurb, because the tile work and the appliances and the cabinetry is just a little outdated, and it could use a little spruce. I think if that kitchen section in particular was really the one that got the attention and the money, these entire suite would feel much more luxurious.
Do you remember the building we were in? We were very close to the main building.
We were in the Springs.
The Springs. We were very close to the main building. I mean, it was right across from the main building, so it was a great location. And I was, just kind of walking through and filming and stuff. I'm like, wow, this is really comfortable. It was really well decorated, just great colors and textures. And I felt like, okay, it's standard DVC one bedroom, with a galley kitchen, the living and the living room kind of being together. As Steve was mentioning, the bath portion, the vanity and jacuzzi tub, both open up out into the master bedroom, and you've got the washer and dryer in there. So and I want to say, I don't want to guess, but I want to say it was about $400 for the night. Doing that, which when you're considering it's basically a one bedroom, it's a one bedroom suite.
While you're looking that up, I will say I've ever since I saw the Coronado's TV, and I know that's the most recently refurbed room, so maybe it's slightly unfair to compare. But seeing how massive that TV was, and then seeing Art of Animations and also Saratoga's, I was a little disappointed in that these are smaller TVs. It's nothing to blow you away.
This was a Friday in February. There were no discounts available. So no annual pass discount or Florida resident discount. $463 for the night. Again, when you're talking about the kind of space you're getting, when you look at other hotels in other popular locations, getting that kind of square footage, you're going to pay more than that. You're going to pay more than that. I'm sorry. To get, like, if I'm in New York or out in California or someplace, and I'm going to get something with that kind of square footage and those amenities, I'm going to pay more than $460 a night for that room. So from my standpoint, that's a good deal. Now, of course, really the best way to stay at Saratoga Springs, to be honest with you, or any of the DVC properties, is to rent the points. Now, over on disboards.com, we have a DVC rent trade board where you're able to rent these points. Of course, David's DVC Rentals, one of our official sponsors, it's a company that does nothing but rent out DVC points. I don't know what the going rate is now to rent a point, but for those who are not familiar, the way Disney Vacation Club works is when you buy in, you buy a certain number of points every year. So let's say you buy in at 300 points. You have 300 points to use every year at your home resort or one of the other home away from home resorts at Disney World. In your home resort, you can book 11 months out. In and another DVC resort that's not your home resort, or think it's 9 months, I may be wrong, don't shoot me. But what people do is when they have extra points that they're going to lose if they don't use them, they can rent them out. And I think at one point on the boards, it was between $12 and $15 a point. So let's say it's, 22 points a night for, that one bedroom. And I'm just averaging here. I don't know what it would be. But let's say it's 22 points a night at $15. You're talking about what? $230, $240, I think, if I'm doing the math correctly in my head. For that room that otherwise would go for $436. These are common stories. You always save money renting points. Always, 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 always. It's legitimate. You're not doing anything wrong. It's not getting around Disney's system. This is all totally legit and legal. People do it all the time. People have been doing it for years. And it is a great way to save money and kind of have experiences. And like I said, you can do it at Saratoga. Actually, you're more likely to get them at Saratoga because because of the size of it, it's an easier resort to get availability at. Old Key West is another one that's usually not too hard. Boardwalk, Beach Club, Wilderness Lodge, Grand Floridian, Polynesian, those are a little bit harder because they're very popular. They're not as large. Whereas, Old Key West and Saratoga were built solely are completely dedicated to DVC. Old Key West was built for DVC. Saratoga, as we explained, was kind of converted over time, but it's all DVC. So there's a lot of rooms, a lot of availability.
Question. I've never rented points before. Do you have to do this really far in advance? Or
obviously, the further in advance you do it, the better. But that doesn't affect the price.
Okay.
Nobody's yielding the rates on point rentals. I'm hoping I'm not giving anybody an idea either. The problem with doing it close in is that it's very unlikely the resort's going to have any availability because these will fill up.
Right.
Especially like a place like Saratoga Springs. A lot of people own at Saratoga Springs. So, but it is always a good idea to check that out. It is a great way to kind of get the experience of staying at these home away from homes, get these larger rooms, because this room is going to sleep 2 adults in the master, and I think you get 2 more on the pull-out couch in the living room. So you can sleep 4 and have some privacy since there's a separate bedroom.
And I think the 2 bedrooms, I've actually stayed in them before, have another room with 2.
Right. Right. If you get a 2-bedroom, basically what a 2-bedroom is a combination of a 1-bedroom like you were in and a studio. Because those are the designations of rooms at vacation club properties. You have a studio, which is a standard, almost like a standard hotel room, but it will have like a microwave and a sink and, like a wet bar area where you can do some minor food prep. But you have the 1-bedrooms, which have a full kitchen, the 2-bedrooms, which are basically the 1-bedroom and the studio, and then the grand villas, depending on the resort that you are at. But in the case of Saratoga, the grand villas are the tree houses. So those are usually 3 bedrooms, usually sleep like 8 to 10 people. And again, not 100% sure of that right now. It's at the tree houses. Maybe I should have prepared more.
Total fun fact on the tree houses, for like a very short period of time, I don't know if it was like a year or 2, maybe a little bit more, they were actually the housing. This was like either back in the early 90s or even 80s or something. For a very short time, they were the housing for college program students.
Yes, that's right.
Which is unbelievable because that's amazing to have that as your housing for a college program.
But understand that for a long time, these were dilapidated.
Okay.
So when they decided to make the Saratoga Springs, and they were going to use those tree houses as the grand villas, they had to spend a lot of time and a lot of money rehabbing, because these things were it was like a
kid's tree house that's falling down.
An abandoned. It was like an abandoned city. So they had to do a lot of work on those. But generally speaking, when you think about the fact that there are ways to get these rooms, if you're not a DVC member, at a really good price. Get that space. I'm thinking about it in terms of comparing it to a family suite over at Art of Animation. You can probably, fit about the same number of people for less money, renting points. Of course, that's not a hard and fast rule. It all depends on how many points something takes. But it's, I would absolutely want to stay there and have an extended amount of time at the resort. Being there for the day, like I was, I mean, you slept there overnight, but being there for the day, I was like, okay, I want to check this out more.
Not to totally sidetrack, but I just popped into my head, the homey feeling that this has, and I don't know what the pricing is for around Christmas time, and I'm sure it's pretty expensive and pretty pricey, but I could imagine this being a great place to stay if you're going to be here for Christmas morning, that it would kind of feel like your living room as you walk out in there. And if you got a tree set up, because I know you can actually get a Christmas tree in your room now, I could imagine this being a great room to have Christmas morning in with your family, because it does just feel like you're at home. Yeah. I don't know, just a totally random side point. But
so overall, what did you think of Saratoga?
I think it has its pros and cons, like we mentioned. I think it's very comfortable. I think the grounds are beautiful. The quick service location's not the best. The pool's great. I would say it's, for me, an 8 out of 10. So I'd actually give it pretty high marks.
And I'll go along with that. I was pleasantly surprised. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it would be particularly memorable. And I think there's a lot more to Saratoga Springs than people realize. Mm-hmm. Certainly, that's my realization coming away from it. And I think it's certainly worth looking at. I think a lot of people may find it as a place of last resort, no pun intended, because they can't get availability anywhere else, and there's usually always availability at Saratoga. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's how they get a lot of their members. Mm-hmm. For DVC, is that someone's like, oh well, there's no place else to stay, and they get there and they're like, wow, this is actually really, really nice. Mm-hmm. Because that was kind of the feeling I walked away with. Yeah, I think that food court area, that whole counter service thing needs to be rethought. I think their organization for check-in needs to be rethought. But I thought the cast members were all wonderful that we interacted with. I will tell you, the Turf Club, I had a great meal there a few nights before that. I wish they would open for lunch. I think that would be a good option. I thought the rooms were really well appointed, but I take your point that probably some updates need to be done with certain things. But overall, I'll go with you, 8 out of 10. So there you have it. That is our take on Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort as part of our 7 Resorts in 7 Days series. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next time. Have a great week, everybody.